Thank you, Patrick. It's really nice to be here. Tonight I'm going to speak about a very enjoyable, fun topic, disasters. Let me start by sharing with you a small story from Japan, from the tsunami. The children that you see in the picture, the very cute Japanese children, are from a yochien, from a kindergarten next to Sendai. And in the terrible March 11 disaster, 8 children from this kindergarten lost their lives, and 1 teacher. When I first arrived to this kindergarten, it was about 2 weeks after the disaster. The children were traumatized, the teachers were traumatized, their parents were traumatized. And like everyone else in this room, I was thinking to myself, what support could I offer? What could I actually do to comfort them? And we did something quite unique that made me realize that disasters are terrible, but they're also opportunities. But first, let's talk about disasters. So this is the tsunami in Japan. This is a picture I actually took 4 days after the disaster in Onagawa, next to Ishinomaki. Again, seeing this type of devastation, seeing this type of destruction, what can we do? How can individual, NGO, government, foreign country, Israeli guy in Tohoku can help? This is another disaster that I had the opportunity to visit, the Typhoon in the Philippines. I went there 1 week after, and the school, the building that you see here destroyed is actually a school, just like this school. And again, the same question, seeing this mass destruction, seeing this type of devastation, so many people lost their life, what can we do? How can this disaster be also an opportunity for growth? I also had the opportunity to work in Korea, in Sewol, and I'm sure you all remember the terrible tragedy that happened about 1.5 years ago in April, where almost 300 high school students lost their life in the terrible Sewol Ferry disaster. The picture here is the entrance to the school, and this banner in English saying, "It's not your fault," is something that really struck me and was very important in Korea, because what happened after this terrible disaster, the whole country was traumatized, and there was a lot of people who decided to take the blame, to take the guilt on themselves, and committed suicide. A different type of disaster that I had the opportunity to work in Sierra Leone, the Ebola outbreak. The whole world was panic. I remember the first time I came back to Narita Airport after visiting Sierra Leone and the Ebola outbreak. About 20 doctors in full suits were waiting for me, and they were so panicked that someone is coming, they thought I'm going to bring Ebola back to Japan. So again, devastation. What can we do? I just came back 2 days ago from Greece, where we are working with the Syrian refugees that are arriving, 5,000 people every day. And the picture that you see here, this rubber boat, is what we've seen every day, where thousands of people are fleeing from war. Many of them lost their relatives. Many of them are actually drowned in the ocean. Terrible situation. But disasters are also an opportunity. And I want to share with you a story and go back to this kindergarten in Tohoku. This kindergarten where 8 children lost their life and 1 teacher also died. The children were so traumatized. When we first came there, they were staying in a kind of hinanjo, in a kind of a shelter. And my first observation was that, they have food, they have shelter. What they don't have are activities to help them release the stress, to help them cope with this terrible trauma that they went through. So we decided to do a very simple art therapy activity. We took a big piece of paper and we divided it into 4 parts. And in the first part, we wrote the word tsunami. The second part, we wrote the word home. The third part was hope, and the fourth, happiness. We gave the children crayons and colors, and we told them just paint whatever you feel in each part. And then something quite unusual happened, because the first thing the children did when they saw the word tsunami is they grabbed very dark colors, very black crayons, and they completely erased the word, as if just seeing the word tsunami brings back their trauma. In the part where it says home, they drew their own houses, their own home, washed away by the disaster. And you know, many of these children, when the tsunami happened, they escaped to a higher hill, and they actually saw their houses washed away by this disaster. In the part where it says hope, they painted their houses and their home and their town before the tsunami. It was as if their hope for the future was that things would go back to normal. And in the part where it says happiness, they painted ampaman and sakura and hamburger and ice cream, you know, things that make children all over the world happy. You know, when we saw the children drawing in this activity, we thought it's a very natural reaction for a very unnatural situation. You know, the children had to express themselves somehow. But actually the teachers, the Japanese teachers, were shocked, because they said it's the first time since the tsunami that the children actually expressed themselves. You know, these are young children. They don't take to speak about the emotions. It was difficult for them to share. But when they had the opportunity to draw it, they really expressed themselves. And then the people you see here in the pictures are the teachers of these children. Because they came to us and asked us, they said, actually, we have been working as teachers for 20, 30 years, but we never learned how to help the children express themselves. We never learned how to deal with this kind of trauma. And again, they never had to, because there's nothing like this in the history. So we started to work with the teachers. And this work in one kindergarten in Japan grew up to more than 3,000 schools, teachers, more than 3,000 participants who joined our workshops until now. So this terrible disaster, this terrible tsunami, was actually an opportunity to build a mental health support system in Japan that was not existent before. And our work started in Tohoku, but it moved to Tokyo, to Osaka, to Kyoto. Same happened in Korea. This terrible disaster where 300 children, 300 students lost their life, a lot of people tried it and actually committed suicide, was an excuse for us, was an opportunity for us to introduce these trauma care activities, this art therapy, dance therapy, music therapy. Told you I just came back from Greece, and the picture you see an Israeli doctor holding a Syrian child, 3 years old, who lost his mother, who drowned in the Mediterranean. And again, this is a terrible tragedy, and I wish no one in the world had to go through. But it's also an opportunity, and it's a very unique opportunity for us as Israelis. I don't know how many of you are familiar with Middle East politics, and if you don't, it's good for you. But Israel and Syria are enemies. I actually never had the opportunity to meet someone from Syria until I met a lot of Syrian refugees now in Greece. And the father of this baby who survived told me, my biggest enemies became my biggest supporters. So this terrible disaster was an opportunity to build bridge between enemies, between Jews and Muslims. It was also an opportunity for us to introduce new methodology. So we did a lot of this art therapy activity with the Syrian children in the camps. And this cute girl that you see in the picture is also from Fukushima area. She lost her mother, and for 2 months she didn't speak a word. She was eating, she was drinking, she was sleeping, but she couldn't speak. She couldn't express herself. Now I play guitar. I'm not a professional like this band you've seen before, but I can play a few chords. And I was playing guitar, and I saw that this girl, when she saw me with the guitar, she was really interested, not in me, but in the guitar. And I invited her to play with me. Now I can speak some Japanese, but at that point I spoke probably 2 or 3 words. And I asked her to teach me a Japanese song. So she taught me the song Kaeru no Uta. I don't know if you're familiar with this song. And I asked her if she could sing it. And of course she sang it, and I tried to sing it, and I made a lot of stupid mistakes. So she started to laugh, and she started to communicate. And through this music therapy, eventually she was able to go back to normal. A whole new, different type of opportunity we had with the Ebola outbreak. We actually, together with an app company from Silicon Valley, we designed and built an app that's being used now by UNICEF and by other UN agencies to help track the Ebola victims. And once they track, this app automatically reports to the police, to ambulance, and it's actually helped a lot with the combat against Ebola. And one of the reasons that you don't hear now about Ebola is because it's almost over, and thanks to technology. A recent disaster that I had the opportunity to visit was in Nepal after the earthquake. And this temporary house that we built in Nepal, the family that's sitting here in this house actually told us they lost their house in the earthquake, and some of their relatives also died, but they were so happy after we helped them design and build this new type of shelter, because they said it's actually much better than what they had before. Before they had a mud house, and now they have something from tin, a little bit of cement, bricks. And this house is very cheap, actually. It costs less than Niman yen to build. And we're now having 15 teams in Nepal building this house, and we're already building 1,200 houses. Another bridge that was built, as I mentioned, is between Israel and Syria through this terrible disaster. And on a very personal note, another opportunity that I grabbed after working in Tohoku, I had the opportunity to meet my wife. And she's here in the audience, but I don't know if you can recognize her without the kimono. But again, my main point, disasters are terrible, but they're also an opportunity for innovation, for new ideas, for new technology. And I invite each one of you to get involved in disaster relief work and to innovate new solutions for helping victims around the world. Thank you.